Today we will analyze Bitcoin together based on my 20 metrics using my exclusive 10x formula, and I can only say that the result surprised even me. Yes, and then we will get started right away. What is Bitcoin anyway? It is a layer 1 blockchain with proof of work. Ultimately, it is seen as digital gold, especially against inflation. Founded in 2008 ultimately as a response to the financial crisis at that time. And then we come directly back to my 10x formula. I highly recommend this video where I explain the 10x formula in detail and my 20 metrics. Then we will dive directly into the analysis, starting with the market capitalization. It stands at $1.72 trillion. That is already extremely high. Therefore, I would say that the potential is somewhat limited, at least in this bull run. In the long term, I see Bitcoin at over $1 million, therefore a rating of only 3 out of 10 for this bull run. Then, what about the circulating supply? 94%, that is extremely good, meaning there is essentially no risk of inflation, therefore 10 out of 10. And the next point, the roadmap. How is it? Well, Bitcoin doesn't have a classic roadmap in that sense, but it does have proposals that can ultimately be voted on. But it doesn't have a classic roadmap, therefore 6 out of 10. Then the next point, how is the team? Well, in that sense, Bitcoin doesn't have a direct team. Rather, it is a decentralized team, a community of global developers who make it open source. Therefore, 7 out of 10. Then the next point, what narratives does Bitcoin have? Well, as digital gold, of course, and as a store of value, so very relevant, therefore 9 out of 10. And then the next point, what problem does Bitcoin solve? Well, it is the decentralized alternative to fiat currencies and ultimately to the financial system. It is against inflation because it is ultimately the rarest, yes, I would say the rarest digital asset in the world. Digital gold, extremely important, extremely relevant, 10 out of 10. And then the next point, how is the economy? Well, it is ultimately fixed at 21 million bitcoins. It always has, I would say, halving periods, which ultimately reduces the main supply. This is extremely positive. As a result, it becomes, let's say, increasingly rare to obtain, and thus actually more valuable in the long run. Therefore, 9 out of 10. And then the next point, what about the investors? Well, there are already many institutional investors, including BlackRock, and then there is the ETF. This means that more and more can really invest in Bitcoin through the ETF, including pension funds and so on. So this is extremely positive, 8 out of 10. And then the next chapter. Well, it is such that ultimately the capital mainly comes in through the community in that sense. Bitcoin is not a company in that sense and therefore does not have capital in the traditional sense. It is the entire community, but also, as mentioned, institutional investors. And so on, therefore 7 out of 10. And then the next point, what does such marketing look like? Well, Bitcoin does not have its own marketing department because it is decentralized, but ultimately it is organic growth through the community and the media. The higher the price rises, the more Bitcoin naturally comes into the media. 8 out of 10. Stop. Before I continue, I must tell you something. I discovered an altcoin that ultimately has massive potential. It still has a relatively low market cap, which for us investors means that it carries more risk, but of course also much more potential. I will upload this altcoin next weekend, the entire analysis based on my 20 metrics with my 10x formula. And if you don't want to miss that, then subscribe to my channel and don't forget to activate the bell, so you really don't miss any insights. And now let's continue. So, is Bitcoin easy to understand? And yes, it is easy to understand. Decentralized, digital currency, easy to understand, digital gold, 9 out of 10. And then the next point, what is the long-term vision? As ultimately a store of value, of course, and long-term as a global reserve currency. More and more countries, I would say, are also supported by Bitcoin, such as America, therefore 9 out of 10. Then the next point is that it is deflationary. It has a maximum supply. And yes, it has both. It has a maximum supply of 21 million bitcoins. And through the halving cycles, it is also deflationary. Yes, perfect, 10 out of 10. Then the next point. How does the fully diluted market capitalization compare to the market capitalization? Well, ultimately, it is quite close to both. Therefore, it is extremely positive. This ultimately means that there are no more nasty surprises. 10 out of 10. And then, how is the volume through market capitalization? So, how is the liquidity? It stands at 0.094. This is significantly above the reference value. So extremely liquid, extremely positive, 10 out of 10. And then, how is the token distribution? Well, it is decentralized, so there are quite few risks for a massive selling pressure, therefore 9 out of 10. And the next point are the top coin holders, as few as possible. And yes, there is only a moderate concentration of those who hold a really large amount of Bitcoin, all still within absolute limits, therefore 7 out of 10. And then the next point, what is the utility of Bitcoin? Well, on one hand, for purchasing, for payment so to speak, then as a store of value, and of course increasingly in everyday life for purchasing phone-on products. So, it has extremely many advantages and extremely many uses, 10 out of 10. And the next point, the community. How is it? Well, it has an extremely large community and I would say many developers who really support the coin and Bitcoin. In the end, extremely positive, 10 out of 10. And then, what is the current situation? Well, in the bear market, Bitcoin was quite resilient. Now, as the bull market really starts, on one hand we have America, which is really favorable towards Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. The Bitcoin ETF is here. And generally, institutional investors are increasingly investing in Bitcoin, and additionally, retail investors are coming back into the market, which is extremely positive, therefore 9 out of 10. And then we come directly to the result, 94.7%, an extremely good result. Bitcoin has an extremely good economy and ultimately has an extremely good foundation. The only thing that remains, I would say, in the long term is that the growth potential is enormous. In the short term, it is a bit limited, but it still has its absolute value and still has an extreme growth ratio to the market capitalization. Yes, and then we come directly to the forecast. So, again at the top, what is in fact the worst case, neutral in quotation marks, normal case, and the optimistic case, meaning in the worst case from the perspective of artificial intelligence as well, $126,000, and in the best case, $252,000. So there is still extreme potential. From now on, a 2.5 to 5x, hence a great result. Now that you know what kind of mega potential Bitcoin still has in the end, I would like to introduce you to an altcoin from the RWA sector that really has mega potential, but for some reason, no one has noticed it yet. I will link it right here at the top. Enjoy this video. And if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel with the bell so you won't miss any more analyses in the future. Also, feel free to leave a comment on which altcoins you would like to have analyzed. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.